A week ago yesterday, a man approached the west gate doors to the building, hoping to come in. The temperature that day averaged about -10 degrees Celsius, and that is without the wind chill. This man was a little ragged looking, not properly dressed for the weather, and, I presume, did not have a warm place to call home. He wanted to come in that day for the same simple reason my 3-year-old wanted to stop playing in the backyard snow a couple days ago. He was cold. The Torah teaches us to care for the widow, the orphan, and significantly in this case, for the stranger. It is among the most fundamental of our most sacred book's teachings. Letting him in would have cost nothing, except perhaps for the hot cup of tea that I hope he would have been offered. Of course, though, and it breaks my heart to say of course, our kind, ever-smiling weekday security guard, Deepak, followed the instructions given to him by our shul in all of our names and turned this man away, suggesting he go to No Frills instead. One of the tenets of our staff training is providing audacious hospitality, what traditionally we call hachnasat orchim, welcoming the guest, on the model of Abraham and Sarah, who received and fed 3 strangers in their wilderness tent. To this stranger, however, we were not kind. To this potential guest, we did not provide audacious hospitality. Sadly, the events in Colleyville, Texas last Shabbat are a reminder of why, when frozen strangers appear at our door, we turn them away. 2 texts from this week's parasha were in my mind this week. One from the portion's beginning and one from its end. I'm going to speak about them in reverse order. In the second last verse of this morning's Torah reading, we are taught, "If you make for me an altar of stones, do not build it of hewn stones, for by wielding your tool upon them, you have profaned them." Our sages identify this tool as one made of iron. But why the prohibition? Why can't an iron tool be used to hew an altar's stones? For the Mishnah and Tractate Midot, iron is equated with the weapons of war. It brings misery and death. The altar, on the other hand, is about living and making good with God. As the Mishnah states, iron was created to shorten man's days, while the altar was created to prolong man's days. It is unseemly that that which shortens life should be wielded against that which prolongs it. As the scholar Nahum Sarna explains, the Mishnah, it is illegitimate to promote spiritual ends by violent means. The tools of warfare are anathema to the tools of worship. Striking a stone as God created it, with that which represents violence, destroys the ability of that stone to create holiness. It destroys the ability to connect the worshiper with the divine. The second text is found in the 7th verse of our parasha. Moshe has gone out to meet his father-in-law Yitro, a Midianite priest. After their initial greeting, the Torah records, "Vayishalu ish l're'ehu l'shalom." They asked after the other's welfare. The English, though, loses the depth of the Hebrew. The Torah uses the word shalom. In essence, Moshe and Yitro inquire of one another whether they have found peace. Are you at peace in your soul and into your life? The Torah's question is much deeper than, "How's it going?" or even, "How are you?" It is a query into each other's spiritual and mental well-being. Events such as happened at Congregation Bethel affect people in different ways. For some, it feels very far away, while others experience it like it happened next door. Some have by now moved past any feelings of sadness or anxiety, while others' minds are still very much occupied in what transpired there. I know that many of my rabbinic colleagues are still very shaken. For pulpit rabbis, this hits very close to home. By chance or by algorithm, Facebook asked me this week if I would like to add Rabbi Charlie Sistrid Walker as a friend, since, as Facebook noted, we have many friends in common. And with the exception of one cantor, they're all rabbis. And none of us wants to be a hero. Our spouses and families want that for us even less. We just want to serve our communities in peace. As one friend wrote this week to a WhatsApp group of my rabbinical school class, we didn't sign up for this. Vayishalu ish l'reu l'shalom. They asked after the other's welfare, can also take on a secondary meaning. These words can be read not only as a question but a statement. The root shin aleph lamed means ask, but can also take on the meaning of request. In that sense, Moses and Yitro are each requesting, presumably each from his own God, that the other be granted peace. That this conversation is between an Israelite and a Midianite is not lost on me. Two people of different faiths ask about each other's well-being. Each seeks the peace of the other. Many colleagues this week noted that they were both shocked and saddened that our interfaith partners were silent this week. Few reached out to ask, how are you? Cynically, if the hostage taker would have killed a few people, then more likely we would have heard something. But a terrorist simply entering a synagogue does not register quite so high. This lack of communication shows a failure of imagination, a failure to put oneself in another's shoes, a failure to recognize how interconnected and very, very small the Jewish community is. It is a failure to understand that when Jews are imagined as especially powerful and well-connected, this too is anti-Semitic, even if the person holding those views sees those attributes positively. An even greater failure of imagination, or perhaps language, was the FBI's initial statement that the hostage-taking had nothing to do with the Jewish community, as if Congregation Beth El was chosen at random, as if Jews don't continue to be a vulnerable and increasingly attacked minority. So where does that leave us? My friend Rabbi Adam Cutler, whose own shul in Los Angeles has had armed guards since the Tree of Life murders, writes of the Faustian bargain foisted upon us by those who hate us, by which we surrender some of our sanctity for at least some measure of safety. It is a bargain that we accept, even as so many of us do not like it, even if many of us are sadder this Shabbat morning than last. I fear, as Juliette Kayyem, writing for The Atlantic, puts it, to make a soft target harder would more likely change the target than deter the attacker. A synagogue is not like an airport or a stadium. When it becomes a fortress, something immeasurable is lost. In other words, the more we beef up security, the more money we spend on locks, bulletproof film, and security guards, armed or otherwise, the fewer resources we expend teaching Torah, investing the Jewish lives of our young families, and performing acts of chesed. Self-preservation is a Jewish value, one that may at times have to be exercised through iron, through violence. Indeed, without self-preservation, an individual's or community's goals cannot be realized. Yet self-preservation cannot be an end unto itself. We are here not to ensure that we continue to be here. Rather, we are here to do great works. Indeed, in the fulfillment of our true desired ends concerning the worship of God at the altar or at the temple, connection with violence, even justified necessary violence, becomes disqualifying. We must never forget that survivalism is a means, not an ends. Weapons of war disqualified from building that which serves God. We must always remember what it is that we are ultimately meant to be doing. We cannot always and only think about defense. We must try to build something good. Several summers ago in Jerusalem, I lived through the Iron Dome in action. 3 times I heard the boom as it literally shot missiles out of the air. Without it, Israel's very survival may be at stake. But that Iron Dome cannot build a state. It can only protect it. So too on this side of the ocean. The real work involved in creating a just society involves not weapons, not iron, but the coming together of good people in the support of community and for the glory of Hashem. The real work of creating a just society involves ushering in that cold, disheveled stranger and giving him that hot cup of coffee or tea. I pray that we always have the wisdom to protect ourselves and the inspiration, nevertheless, to live up to our highest ideals.